Hey, good morning there. What I want to talk about today are the cost processes that we have to run to be able to move all the transactions over to cost accounting and have them costed. So first, I want to pop up a bit of a a slide here. Don't do this much, but this presentation, this slide deck is down in the notes below. But to run cost accounting, we need to set up. Well, this shows 9, but there's some that are optional. I'll go through those. But we have to set up these scheduled processes to run in the background, or we have to run them in order before we'll actually see cost and cost accounting. And so we'll walk through each one of these and talk about what they do. The second thing we need to think about operationally is how often should I run these? The cost accounting in Oracle Fusion is something that should be run, in my opinion, daily at a minimum, because there's no reason to do it any less. There's no reason to wait till the end of the month and run all this and have to fix all these errors. This is something that should be done on a day-by-day basis. That way the workload is less. And you can correct errors as you go, and then month end is a much less onerous process. So a lot of these processes can run as frequently as every 3 to 5 minutes. I recommend these run at least once a day. And some of them you may not need, but again, they're all here for you to look at and decide how you want to do it. And then also we have the Redwood coming out in cost accounting now, and some of these names may have been changed, like here, this cost accounting distribution, I think, is now called process run control, things like that. But nevertheless, this is kind of recommendations. And when I'm working with cost accounting, this is something that most of these I'll run 3 to 5 minutes. The create cost accounting and create receipt accounting, I'll run maybe every 15 to 20 minutes because they take a bit longer to run. Okay, with that introduction, what I want to do then is let's pop in and let's take a look at running each one of these. So most of these can be run from scheduled processes. And the first one we're going to pick out is, and we'll see how long the blue wheel of death here runs. If it runs too long, I'll pause it, but there we go. So most of them start with the word transfer. This first one, transfer costs to cost management, which is a mouthful. This will move accounts payable transactions over into cost accounting. Whoops. So this is basically invoice information. If you're going to run it on a schedule, you can pick a future date for the cutoff date and go into advance. And I won't do this on each one, but just kind of show you, create a schedule using the schedule. And you can create different schedules. You can do it daily or whatever. Like I say, I run these about every 3 minutes when I'm working in costing and trying to set up stuff. You'll also notice that the auto increment, this isn't available, this doesn't show up on all of them, but on this one, since there's a cutoff date, it will auto increment that cutoff date for you. And then I'll put an end date, whatever this Friday is, as an example. This is, in my system, it's UTC time, as it says here. So, and then we submit that. And so what that'll do is it'll set up and kick off a process every 3 minutes until the end date. So the next one that I run, and I'm showing these kind of in order. So the next one that we're going to run is called transfer transfer transactions from receiving to costing. And it gives you a little description over here, post-transaction details from receiving to costing. So this is all your receipts that'll come through. And again, you can do an advanced here and do a schedule. Whoops, probably shouldn't have done that, but But you'll notice that there's no options on this one. So it takes all your receiving transactions and moves them into cost accounting to be costed. So we'll just go ahead and submit that. The next one that we're going to do is actually going to be run from receipt accounting. And this is the create receipt distributions. So this is where it'll set up the receiving transactions. It'll go through and deal with things like accruals and all that kind of fun stuff on receipts. And that's receipt accruals is a whole conversation for a whole different video. So we're going to go ahead and create this. My business unit is US1 business unit here. And again, I can put this on a schedule by clicking on advance, or I can just submit this. And then you can follow this back under scheduled processes. And so you notice that my transactions from receiving to costing has succeeded, and now receipt accounting distributions is doing its magic here running. I won't wait for that to finish. So the next one on the list is inventory to costing. We're going to schedule a new process here. Manage your transactions from inventory to costing. So what inventory to costing does is it moves all the transactions from inventory. You'll notice here we have some maintenance, manufacturing, just understood US operations. The commit limit, I don't worry about that too much. I'm really not sure how it works. I've never seen any difference no matter what number I put in there. And again, I can go to advance and put in a schedule. So this moves all the inventory transactions, miscellaneous transactions, ships, all those kinds of things over into cost accounting to be costed. So kind of what we're doing with these first processes is getting all the transactions into cost accounting so that when we kick off the create cost accounting distributions, it can cost everything. So the next one that I'm going to actually, second to the last one here is transfer. Let's see, sorry, typed it wrong. Transfer transactions, search from production to costing. And as it says here, what this one does, it brings over resource transactions, operational transactions, etc. So this is all the labor data collection you've done or resource data collection that you've done. It brings all this over into cost accounting. Again, you can put this on a schedule. And so it can be costed by the cost engine. So just kind of recap here. So transfer cost to cost management. You can see it's run once and it's been rescheduled. So this brings in accounts payable transactions. The next one is transfer from receiving. This is receipt, PO receipt kind of transactions. And then we run the receipt accounting. Then we have transfer transactions from inventory to costing, which are all inventory transactions, miscellaneous transactions, shipment transactions, transfer transactions, all those kinds of things. And then the last one here that we just did was transfer transaction from production to costing. This is moving all the resource transactions. So this is labor data collection, resource data collection, that kind of thing. So all these will run, and that's pretty much the order that you should run them in, unless you know specifically you're targeting a specific subset of that data. And so now what we're going to do is run, and I'll run it from the new world. It used to be called create cost accounting distributions. It's now called right here, cost process run control. So, and what this does is it'll kick off this, the costing engine, as I call it, right? And you can set up various ones depending on what you're trying to do. You'll notice here we have for maintenance and then for manufacturing, etc. I'll open this up so you can take a look at it. You can see down here that it's going to run the U.S. operation cost book, cost org for the financial cost book into the U.S. primary ledger. And so a couple things here in Redwood, things work a bit different. So I can click the Run Now button, and that'll kick off the process immediately. Or if I click the button here, I can run it on a schedule. So we'll just pick this option. And then it's going to ask which one of these do you want to run, and we're going to run the U.S. operations, and then we can submit it. And I'll wait a second here. Yeah, Redwood is exciting. It doesn't always work the way you think it should. When you're working with Redwood, cautionary tale is sometimes back. There's no button to take you back. So you kind of got to start from the beginning and move forward. So the other option is to just click Run Now, and it'll submit it immediately. So this is the one that will probably take the longest to run. Depending on how big your costing operation is, excuse me, this cost accounting, notice here, it's still called cost accounting distribution in the background. This can run as long as 15 minutes. If you haven't run it in a long time, depending on how much is to do, it could run as long as 30 minutes. So this is the one that will take the longest to run. So what all this does is it brings all the transactions over into cost accounting, and now we've kicked off the costing engine to go and cost all those transactions. I won't get into a lot of error handling here. I'll do that in a different video about month-end processes, which I'll go through these steps again. But so these are transactions, in my opinion, that should be run probably daily and at least weekly. You don't want to wait till month end to do all these processes. So the last one, well, there's two more that we should probably do. I'll go back into scheduled process for the one. And this just depends on your situation, what your particular organization has decided to do. The first one to talk about is kind of optional, but it's called import revenue lines. And what this process does is it brings the earned revenue lines from inventory and cost management. So it brings them together so you can get a margin report. So it matches your revenue to your cost of goods sold, right? So this brings in the revenue lines. If you do not have revenue management running, it brings it in from order management. But if you have rev management turned on, then it has to go from order management and wherever into the rev management engine. It has to be able to be recognized before it will be, you'll be able to take that out of rev management and bring it into cost accounting through import revenue lines. So it either comes from order management or it comes from rev management after it's gone through the rev management rules. And again, here, your business unit, I don't know what number of child workers does. I've tried various numbers. It doesn't seem to do much. The difference in processing. So, and then the as of date. And here again, if you run this on a schedule and you put an import date in the future, it will auto increment that like we showed in the first one, and then submit this. This one also runs relatively quickly, again, depending on how often you are running it. So create cost accounting distributions completed. There's some warnings in an operational situation. You don't want warnings. You want it to say succeeded. And again, I'm going to be posting a video on month-end cost, month-end close checklist, for lack of a better word, and some of the ideas on how to go chase and correct those errors. So now we run import revenue lines to get our gross margin. And so the last thing that I would do, the last one that's really important to make sure you run relatively frequently, is create accounting. And I hope they still named it the same thing here. There it is, create accounting. I don't like the fact that this isn't alphabetized or whatever. It's just a list. Uh, I think it's first come, first serve on this list. So, but if you want to see them more in groupings like before, you come down here and see all actions, and they have grouped them so that things are easier to find. So we can do create accounting. Now, what this is it should be run frequently as well, but it should be run in draft mode, right? And so what this does, it will attempt to write journal entries for these, but it won't post them. That's the purpose of draft. That way you have the opportunity to go out there and look at your journal entries, make sure it's posting the way it should, make sure you can correct any errors before coming in at month end and running it in a final mode. And so this should only be done at the month end. Once all the errors have been cleared out and you're sure everything's going to be okay, you run it in final mode. So I'm going to run this in draft mode and submit it. And so what we've done is we've gone through, if I can pop it, we've run this in, run all these processes and get ready for month end. So hope this was helpful.